Hey guys, welcome to a way too early mock draft for this April's draft 2024. This is going to be a no trades draft, even though trades will happen. They're very common, happen in every draft, but no matter what, we're just not going to do any trades just because that adds an extra level of complexity that we don't want to do in a way too early mock draft where we have no clue what's going on. So, we'll be operating under a couple of assumptions and we'll get to those when we do. But the first of them is going to be that the Bears are sticking with Justin Fields and building more weapons around him. And at pick number 1, we have the Bears taking Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State. We're both believers in Justin Fields, so seeing them add another top guy sounds like a no-brainer. And even though a trade back is very likely here if they do stick with Justin, they could get some assets out of the Commanders or the Patriots, whoever wants Caleb Williams more. And that would be smart if they could move down to 2 or 3 and take Marvin Harrison there, save themselves some money. But as we said, no trades in this mock, so we've got Marvin Harrison going at 1.
And as likely as a trade back is, there's a chance that there isn't one because the Patriots, with GM duties of Bill Belichick, aren't going to trade up, so the Commanders wouldn't have to pay a king's ransom for it. And they know that there's no real need to move up there. But on to the Commanders here. After Marvin Harrison is off the board, Caleb Williams, kind of a no-brainer. He's the one for everyone's mock, everyone's board. So having him go at 2 to a team that is quarterback needy over the Bears, who, will they, won't they keep Fields? We'll see. But Caleb Williams, granted, everyone likes to hate on the Commanders' O-line, but a lot of it, I think, is kind of system / Sam Howell. So I think that Caleb Williams with Terry McLaurin would be a massive improvement over Sam Howell and the team's current state.
Most definitely. And then at 3, we've got the Patriots taking Drake May. As a Patriots fan myself, I would prefer a trade back and taking Jaden Daniels, but Drake May is the conventional QB2 in the draft. He's got the most upside and is just kind of widely considered to be the 2 to Caleb Williams. Some people have him over Caleb Williams. I don't see that at all. But yeah, I would prefer a trade back, but in a no trade back draft where the Patriots are sitting at 3 and taking a player, I don't see them passing up on Drake May. And if we end up doing that, if this is how it ends up going, I won't be disappointed.
Next up, the Cardinals here. Last year, we saw them do a nice little trade back, and then they ended up taking Paris Johnson, a tackle. They still need opposite side tackle help, so we have them taking Joe Alt. We recognize that Malik Neighbors is a large possibility here, that there's a good chance that they get wide receiver help, but right now we think that they need the O-line more. Shoring up that other tackle side for Kyler would definitely improve this team. And then moving on to the Chargers. Oh man, this is one of the hot takes of the mock draft here. The first one on the board here, we got Brock Bowers. So Malik Neighbors is on the board, but we think that with the current offensive trio they have at wide receiver, that they would be better suited to taking a tight end, especially with Gerald Everett's departure in the team, more than likely. Unrestricted free agent after this season. And when you have Austin Eckler also likely leaving, that opens up a whole new avenue for the tight end check down to be a huge target share. And so despite the growing pains we had with Quentin Johnston, and despite the injury proneness with the older wide receivers, we still have them taking a versatile weapon in tight end Brock Bowers.
Nice versatile weapon shout out. At 6, we've got the Giants. Bit of a controversial one. Sticking with Daniel Jones and going with Malik Neighbors, wide receiver out of LSU. This is kind of my personal pick. I could definitely see them going with quarterback with Jaden Daniels, Heisman winner, super high upside guy. But the Giants have a quarterback under contract. They have Daniel Jones. They extended him. They gave themselves a 2-year out, so obviously they don't believe in him that much. But they did believe in him enough to hand him a sizable contract. And we really haven't seen Daniel Jones operate with weapons before. We don't know what it looks like. So I think rather than completely just give up on Daniel Jones and thrust another young quarterback into that shitty situation, I think they're going to go with the receiver, Malik Neighbors, get a weapon for Daniel Jones, and see what he can do with him next year. They also still have Tyrod Taylor on their roster. I'm not 1,000% sure if he'll still be there after this year, but if he is, then they've still got a capable quarterback, at least, if Daniel Jones ends up really being the problem. But I think they would give him one last shot at success before they finally call it, and they do that by drafting a weapon for him.
Yep. I do want to preface his selection there with the fact that we did make this mock draft as a unit, but some decisions, we let the other one make, and this was mine. I conceded this pick to him with Malik Neighbors and the belief in Daniel Jones.
Hey.
I know it's not your belief; it's the team's belief. We'll see from how that goes.
Giving him another shot more than having a belief.
Yeah, I mean, not having a backup plan before his 2-year out is up, I suppose, is a smart route. Next up is the Titans. I have them taking Olu Fashanu. They have one of the worst O-lines in football this year, and while they made the leap to... Did they trade up, or was Skoronski just fell to them, correct?
Skoronski fell to them last season, yeah.
Yeah, last season he fell to them, and they nipped at that opportunity to shore up the O-line. They're going to do it again this year. Will Levis has been good, but I think they need to build up something before they start giving Will Levis weapons, because they're not sure if Will Levis is going to be the guy. So I think that being able to shore up a good protective layer for either Levis or maybe a future quarterback that they draft is just the correct way to go, especially given the state that it's in right now.
As well as the kind of lack of weapons they have. Lack of weapons on the board. There's not like a bona fide wide receiver one left on the board at this point after Malik Neighbors is gone. There's, Rome Odunze. Rome. My homie Rome. My homie Rome's still there. But I think that the Titans would definitely opt to shore up that terrible O-line unit over grabbing a weapon. And then next up, the Falcons, who just recently fired Arthur Smith and have been picking at number 8 for the past 2 seasons and have taken offensive weapons for the past 3. They finally get a captain for their offense. They're going to go ahead and take Jaden Daniels here. They are tired of Desmond Ridder. The league is tired of Desmond Ridder. The fans are tired of Desmond Ridder. And throwing an uber talented quarterback into a midst of versatile weapons, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Drake London.
Nice shout out.
Shout out. Throwing him in there with a new OC, with a new head coach would be, the potential is limitless there with a super talented quarterback like Jaden Daniels, who has the rushing threat and the passing threat. They throw some read options in there with Bijan and maybe some RPOs, get, Drake London and Kyle Pitts involved. It's a scary offense on paper.
Onto the Bears, Jer'Zhan Newton. We've kind of already shored up with, number 1 overall pick, Marvin Harrison Jr., any offensive weapons they might need. I could see this pick being a kind of trade back with some of the tackle talent off the board, some of the defensive needs they have, they could probably trade back to and address. But again, in a no-trade situation, we actually have them taking an interior D lineman at 9. Pretty early for that, but as we prefaced, there's no trades in this one, and I think they're taking a position of need as opposed to like best available, because this is definitely a position of need that they would be reaching for. But as I said, a trade back and picking up Newton, I think, could also happen.
Yeah. Jer'Zhan Newton is like the only interior D lineman that's not projected outside the top 50. So he is actually projected to be like a mid first rounder. So it's not that big of a reach, especially for a position of need of them. But yeah, shoring up that side of the ball is a huge, huge need for the Bears. And we're both, I wouldn't say Bears fans, but I want to see them
I'm definitely not.
And I know you want to see Justin Fields succeed just because you believe in him. So we both kind of believe in the Bears, so want them to do well. At 10, we've got the Jets taking Talise Fuaga. They need O-line help so badly. They could not protect the quarterback worth a damn last year. Aaron Rodgers got hurt within the first few plays of the season, and quarterback play after that was mediocre at absolute best. And I think that Aaron Rodgers, if you trot him out there with that same O-line again, he's going down in the first game again. I don't think that there's any path to success that does not involve shoring up the offensive line for them in this draft. And sitting at 10 is a great position to take a good tackle. Obviously, in this draft, it's a little bit top heavy with the tackle talent. Like there's Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu, who are both kind of considered to be big time franchise cornerstone guys where it's like borderline generational, if not generational. And Fuaga is maybe not on that level, but I think in any other draft, he'd also be going pretty highly. And just to throw some stats out there, their offensive line ranked 29th in pass block win rate last season. And with an aging veteran quarterback who is coming off of an Achilles tear, you really want to protect him.
For sure.
Then moving on to 11, we've got the Vikings, and they're going to be taking Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. They have one of the worst passing defenses in the league, and they need secondary help real bad. They blitz a lot, and they're very aggressive, and that's fine if you have the talent on the back end to go with it, but they don't. So taking Kool-Aid here can kind of cover up that issue that they have being super aggressive up front if they've got a guy who can drape out to the sides on those receivers.
And next up with the Broncos, this is where I have to stand my ground because I have the Broncos. And yeah, everyone will say it's early, but I don't care. I have the Broncos taking Bo Nix. They're in a good position right here where they're ahead of their division rival, and they have their pick of the litter between Penix or Bo Nix. And I think that in the next pick, you'll see what happens with the Raiders, but the Broncos feel more like they're going to lean Bo Nix. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but it has a little something to do with
Broncos. They like grit.
Something like that.
They like first guy in,
they
last guy out.
They like that first in. Yeah. First guy in, last guy out mentality.
High motor, you know?
Oh, man. And we'll move off that topic quickly and onto the Raiders. The Raiders, I have taking Michael Penix Jr., the other quarterback. And with how we saw this last season go with Jimmy G, who was kind of, I would say, an attempt at the Band-Aid tactic of like, we'll see how good we can be with Jimmy G. We'll bring him in. We have this head coach who's familiar with him in the past. Now you don't. I presume they're going to be moving off of Jimmy G. And Aiden O'Connell hasn't shown them enough to show he deserves a starting spot moving forward. So I think with Penix here, you kind of slot him in at 1. And while they don't have talent surrounding it, you would have a immediate upgrade at quarterback, while you could give, Aiden O'Connell other weapons. I'm not so sure they're in that position to lead with him going forward.
Yeah. At 14, right after the Raiders, we've got Michael Penix's college teammate, Rome Odunze.
Yes.
Going to the Saints. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Here at 14, the Saints need help in a lot of different places on their entire team, not just their offense, but they need help a lot of places. But having a wide receiver core headlined by Chris Olave is good, and then having A.T. Perry and Rashid Shaheed, shout out both of them. Obviously, they're in the NFL, and I'm sitting at a desk talking about them, so who's really winning? But having those guys headlining your wide receiver core isn't the best look, and I think that bringing in a talented receiver like Rome would be a good move for them, and it would give whoever starts at quarterback for them next year a better shot at success, whether that be Derek Carr or Jameis Winston or any other number of people.
At pick 15, we have collectively decided that Nate Wiggins would be the pick here. Kenny Moore is on an expiring contract. We don't know if he'll be coming back, extended, anything like that. But without an extension before the end of the year, it's seeming more like he'll be moving on. the talent that's left on the board is a lot of like mid-range kind of edge and O-line help. And while they could use a little bit of O-line help and they could use a slight boost to their D-line, they still have Ebicom, they still have Quiddy Pay, still have DeForest Buckner. They will be fine without a pick of those kind of varieties in the trenches. So we have them kind of shoring up the cornerback position with the leaving of Kenny Moore here.
Yeah. At 16, we've got the Seattle Seahawks taking J.C. Latham. He is an offensive tackle out of Alabama, and with a small hole at right tackle. I wouldn't call it like a huge need, but I think the value is definitely there. They've got Abraham Lucas and Stone Forsythe as their two right tackles that are kind of, in and out. Jason Peters as well, I believe.
Shout out Stone.
Shout out Stone. Big shout out. Big shout out Jason Peters too. Dude is doing a lot at 41. But the top tackle on the board, J.C. Latham, a right tackle, could fill that hole for them and help protect Geno a little bit more and shore up that offensive line a little bit and make that offense a little bit better. There's no like game-breaking pick that they could make here. Obviously, Laiatu Latu and Dallas Turner would be cool, but I'd rather them take the tackle that fills the hole they have than take an edge that they don't really need.
And it could be argued that, not in our mock, but in other mocks, that they could go quarterback. But with all the quarterbacks we have already off the board, I don't see them taking J.J. McCarthy in the pick 16. Next up, the Jaguars, Laiatu Latu, as aforementioned. This is the one player. So another preface: we have not done any film study so far. We are basing most of this just off of common media knowledge, the news about where people are in big boards, and most of the knowledge of the general NFL. That's really how we're making this mock draft. Is we have the knowledge of what the team needs are, what some contracts are looking like, and where the team might be looking towards, and that's why we're making those selections. We are not so much, we know that this player does this thing that this scheme perfectly matches up for. Not necessarily that. Now, Latu to the Jaguars. We have Trayvon Walker here, who's 2 years removed from being a first overall pick and has yet to really produce in a way that would seem deserving of that. Obviously, the easy comparison is to Aiden Hutchinson, who was taken a pick after him, producing much more. Trayvon could battle for reps with Latu. They could keep the D-line fresher, and I think Latu would really bring a lot to this pass rush. It's because you're playing both of these two guys on the opposite side of Josh Allen. The D-end Josh Allen, not number 17.
Do you like my little... Anywho, at 18, this is where Dallas Turner's slip ends. We kind of waited to take the top two edge guys off the board, which doesn't normally happen in drafts and isn't the most likely scenario, but really early on, it's just a lot of better players, like bigger needs, more valuable positions, and players that are just like game breaking or just really promising. So a lot of mocks I know have Latu and Dallas Turner going a little earlier than the final two solidified picks, but this is where we've got them falling. And the Bengals, they have the 24th ranked pass rush win rate unit. And whether or not that's the fault of Sam Hubbard, it's not the fault of Trey Hendrickson. So we've got Dallas Turner coming in to replace Sam Hubbard, or at least give them a little boost, have him coming in rotationally. And sometimes for rookies that can be a little bit better if they aren't forced to take on the entire load right away and face, all pro tackles in their first game ever. So if they bring in Dallas Turner and have him come in for, 30-40% of snaps the first few games and then ramp that up if he starts to produce, they don't have like a glaring need at edge with Sam Hubbard. He's okay. But I think the only other position that they really need would be receiver if T. Higgins leaves. And at that point, then we're looking at somebody like, Lad McConkey.
Troy Franklin.
Troy Franklin. And there's an LSU guy too. that I am spacing on the name of. But I think at this position with Dallas Turner on the board, I don't think they'd pass on that. As I said before, we've got him slipping a little bit, but I think that they see that and they jump at that opportunity. But yeah, that is the Bengals pick.
And that will wrap up the way too early mock draft we have. Stopping at 18 picks because this is prior to playoffs. This is the only solidified list of the draft order that we have. So we're locking it up there. Let us know how much you hate the picks, why you think your team should make this pick instead of this pick, and all of the other hate comments you can put down in the comments.
On a real note, give us some insight into some players that you'd like to see go to certain situations. If there's somebody you were a fan of in college and you think that they'd fit really well into a scenario, and you think they'd be fun there, let us know. Keep us up to date, and we'll be doing a couple more mock drafts before draft season is upon us. This is just our very first one. We'll probably do one a few weeks after the end of the season when we start to hear some more about these college players, when we start to have a full list of everybody who's declared. Because obviously there's a couple players who just haven't declared yet, and we don't know if they're going to be in the draft or not. So stick with us.
And keep an eye out for any kind of videos we put out on scouting and stuff like that, because we will be doing our own kind of film study to make these mock drafts a little bit better, more cohesive with the knowledge from their college game as well.
Yeah. Thank y'all for watching. Let us know your thoughts again in the comments. Stick along if you want to stick with us through the process of the draft and the off season and everything. Definitely do. Later.
Deuces.